We roll along on this Thursday night. Take a break for some of the football talk, only because arguably the greatest men's tennis player ever has decided to hang it up after a amazing career and about $1 billion in earnings. Roger Federer has done it all. And I said it today that his retirement announcement was hands down one of the best. I'll talk about it here in just a second. With the great Patrick McEnroe, who joins us here for a few minutes on the show, ESPN tennis analyst. And little did I know until just before we came on the air to interview him, he and John McEnroe are Laver Cup captains for the American squad,
right.
which I didn't even know, because he's saying he's going to the Laver Cup. So first of all, congratulations on a great U.S. Open. It was so much fun watching it. There were so many riveting matches and so many great moments from this tournament, with Carlos Alcaraz winning this year's event and becoming the youngest ranked number one player in the world at just the age of 19. And we'll get to that in a second. But start with the news of Federer. And the first thing I thought of today is, with all the way people retire today, the farewell tours. And look, I'm not saying that Serena didn't deserve every bit of what she got in terms of, all the fanfare and all the hoopla surrounding her retirement. Everybody chooses to do it a different way. But this was done in such a Roger Federer way, wasn't it?
Well, he's all class. And by the way, he's still, even though he hasn't hit a tennis ball in a competitive match in well over a year, by far, if you believe what you read in Forbes, the highest paid athlete on the planet. And I don't think that's going to change, because he's that big, he's that popular with what he's done on the tennis court, but because of who he is and what he's done off the court. So, yes, you're right, Jason. It was typical Federer, which is humble, which is real, which is honest. And I think that's part of why he is the most recognizable athlete on the planet, or the most well paid, because he gets it. He gets it on every level. And I think he's genuine. He's genuine. He's an authentic person. I know him a little bit. I've got to know him a little bit over the years. And, he treats people within the tennis establishment with so much respect. People that, like a guy like me who has nothing. I'm not related to him with my tennis play or my life experience as a player in any way. But he gets it. Like, he just respects people, and he loves the game. He loves the history of the game. He loves everything about it. And I think it's his passion for the game that makes him who he is, in addition to obviously being one of the greatest players that's ever picked up a racket.
You had to have crossed over, though. His career spans a long time. You guys had to have crossed over a little bit, didn't you?
I'm a little older, Jason.
No, you're not. Come on.
Yes, I am. I'm 56.
I know that.
41. Yeah.
But
by the time he started playing, I was already in broadcasting, and I was actually one of the first times I saw him up close and personal was when my first year I was the Davis Cup captain, which was in the early 2000s. And we went, and the first match that we had in Davis Cup that year was the U.S. against Switzerland, in Basel, which is where he's from. And I remember watching him. He just dismantled our team, as a teenager. And I thought to myself, this guy's freaking good. Who is this guy? This guy's got skills that I've never seen before. And I'll tell you one more story before we just get into, his greatness.
Sure.
And I think how he's changing it. When I first started in broadcasting, Jason, one of my first jobs was CBS, being sort of the sideline guy. And CBS at that time covered the Cincinnati tournament, which is one of the big events, leading up to the U.S. Open. So I was the sideline guy, and Federer just absolutely destroyed James Blake in the final, 6-1, 6-2 or something. The match took like 50 minutes. And I went to interview Roger after the match. And the match went so fast that the CBS producer was going crazy. Oh, we this is too fast. We got to fill 2 hours. So I went and I sat down on the bench next to Federer. He shook hands. And they said, oh, you got to do the interview before we do the trophy presentation. So I said, listen, Roger, I said, first of all, well done, great match. I said, you whipped Blake so quickly. Is it okay if I, ask you a few more questions than normal, in the post-match interview? He goes, oh, yeah, no problem, Patrick, no problem. And then he looks at me and he says, the crowd's going crazy and they're setting up for the trophy. And he says, I ball boyed for you. I said, excuse me? I said, what? He goes, yeah, in Basel, because he's from Basel. He goes, you played the final one year. I said, yeah, that's right. I played Wayne Ferreira in the final. I said, you must have been rooting for me, right? He goes, well, he gave me that little sheepish grin of his. And he said, well, no, actually I wasn't, because my mom's South African and Wayne Ferreira is South African. So I wasn't rooting for you at all. And I said, you're unbelievable. So there's actually a video, okay, that some people have been posting today, because Roger said in his message today to the world, one of the things he says, I'll always be a ball boy at heart, like that little kid. And there's literally a video of him scampering to get the ball, and who is walking to the sideline for the changeover was me. And I'm like, this is like little did I know, right? I had no idea that like Roger freaking Federer was ball boying for me at this time. But that tells you about Roger. Like, in that moment when I went to interview him, like, he wasn't thinking about the tournament, or he just destroyed James Blake and he was dominating him. He made it personal to me, to little old me. And he's done that just with so many people in the tennis world, and then obviously in the sports world and the world in general. And that's why he's as beloved as he is all over the world.
Patrick McEnroe, ESPN tennis analyst, joining us here on the Cash In Sports Map Radio, the Sports Map Radio app as well. Was it a scenario where he just exhausted every possibility to get back onto the court and be competitive and couldn't, or did it just get to a point where he realized, even if I do exhaust every opportunity, I'm 41. What are the chances he's going to be able to be as competitive as he would expect himself to be?
I believe it's the former, Jason, without having spoken to Roger, but just with what I know about him and what I've heard through my various sources over the course of the last, 6 to 9 months, when he was training extremely hard and doing everything he could to give himself the possibility to do it one more time, to be Roger Federer one more time. And you brought up a great point about Serena, and the Serena send-off at the Open was awesome. I mean, it was great for the sport. It was great for tennis. It was great for her. And it got a huge buzz going about the tournament, which then catapulted, I believe, to another level with Alcaraz and the way the tournament unfolded. That being said, I never really believed that Serena could win the tournament. Okay? It was great to see her be competitive, and I think the fact that she was competitive, she might even be thinking about coming back, which is another story for another day. But Federer, I believe, doesn't want to just come and play a couple of matches. If he was going to come back, he wanted to come back to where he could legitimately say, I've got a shot. Not necessarily I'm going to win Wimbledon, but I've got a shot to win Wimbledon or the U.S. Open, that I can be competitive with the best players in the world. And I think when the reality hit, as he was going through all the and what people don't realize about Roger Federer, Jason, is that this guy's tough. And he wants it, and he's done all the work. Because you watch him play for so many years, and you're looking at this guy and like, this looks so easy. I mean, he's like Fred Astaire in a tennis outfit. I mean, how does he do this? How does he make this look so effortless? But he did it, because he's got incredible genetic ability, but also because he put the work in, and he managed himself over the years, which is why he had some of his best years in his 30s. And so I think the writing for him was on the wall that wasn't going to happen. And then he made the decision to pull the plug at the Laver Cup, which is an event that he started, basically, because he has so much respect for Rod Laver, who's the last male player to win the Grand Slam. And he did it twice in his career, that he didn't think Rod Laver was getting his due as an all-time great. So he started this event. So it's fitting. It's going to be amazing, Jason. I'm going to be there, as sort of on the other team. But it's really going to be about him and about tennis. And, Djokovic is going to be there. Nadal's going to be there. Andy Murray's going to be there on his team. I mean, there's not going to be a dry eye in the house, when Roger takes the court. It's going to be incredible.
Do you lament the fact or regret the fact that we're not going to get to see him one more time in a major and have that sort of special send-off? Because, look, let's be honest. It's a wonderful event in the tennis world, but it doesn't have the gravitas of those majors, of those Grand Slams.
Yeah, you're right.
Is that something that you lament, that he couldn't find a way to get into a position where he could have that sort of special send-off on the biggest stage?
I lament it for the good of the sport, and for him personally, because I think he wanted that, and I think he worked as hard as he could. And he would have worked even harder if he thought it was possible, because Serena, sort of got that at the U.S. Open, which, as you rightly said, she deserved. She's the greatest of all time, and I think Roger deserved that. But it's not going to happen, and and that's life, and that's part of also what he said in his message, and it's part of what makes him who he is that he's human, and he cried when he lost in the Australian Open final to Nadal. And he cried when he beat Nadal in the Australian Open final. And all of a sudden, that was okay. For an all-time athlete to show himself, to show his emotions, and to say, as he did in his message today, he's had some of, the greatest victories and some of the toughest defeats. But he always lived. He felt like he was living it. And I think he appreciated it more than any other great player that I've ever known or been around. Roger Federer loved the game of tennis. He just loved to play tennis. Pete Sampras loved to win at tennis. My brother was tortured by tennis in a way, but he loved to compete. He loved the battle. Connors loved the battle. Agassi loved to just, go out there and do his thing. Nadal is like the ultimate competitor, right? Djokovic is his own being. He just combines all of it in some way. But Federer just loves to hit the tennis ball. Whether he's competing or not, he just loves to play.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of him. And I think that's why so many people, Jason, are so affected by what he's done.
Yeah.
Not because he's such a great player. I mean, that's obvious. But because of who he is and sort of his demeanor of how he's gone about it for so many years.
And interestingly enough, you mentioned Jimmy Connors, the only person to win more ATP tournaments than Roger Federer is Jimmy Connors, who I think won 109, which is an insane number. And that was at a time where everybody played all the time and whatnot. But it's kind of an amazing number when you think about it, what Connors was able to do in the course of his career as well. Talking with Patrick McEnroe. One last one. I only got about 60 seconds here. You mentioned Serena, and I don't want to shortchange this whole thing with her kind of hedging on coming out of retirement. Yes or no? Will we see her in another Grand Slam event as a singles player?
I believe we will. I mean, but that's just my opinion. I have no inside information. I just think that she saw at the U.S. Open that if she worked and played as she did for a couple of weeks leading into the tournament, that she could actually still compete at the high. Now, again, can she win another one? I still think that's a stretch at her age, just like Federer figured it out. But, I think that she saw, wow, I could actually still do this. So that would be my pick. I mean, she can do whatever she wants. She's Serena. I mean, she's going to have plenty of options, obviously, in the rest of her life. And what she's done for tennis is no matter if she ever touches the racket again, it doesn't matter. But if you're just asking me my opinion, I believe she will play again.
Great stuff from Patrick McEnroe, ESPN tennis analyst. Enjoy the Laver Cup, my friend. Always good to catch up.
You got it, my friend. Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll come back. More to do on the Cash In on the Sports Map Radio Network.